What's up, YouTube? This is Two Off of TV. As always, I'd like to remind you guys, if you want to show love to this channel, if you want to donate to this channel, you can do so in the links provided in the description box below. Now, let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Many of you guys who've been following my channel for the past several months know that I was a big believer in the Milwaukee Bucks. I thought they had what it took to win a championship. I didn't think it was going to be easy, but I thought they had what it took to win a title. And but it didn't come to fruition. Toronto, a team that virtually all of us underestimated, took them in six and ultimately won the title against an undermanned Warrior squad. So, if you were a Bucks fan, you had to hope that you were able to at least keep the nucleus of that team intact. And I think the Milwaukee Bucks failed in that sense. They failed. They did a decent job of it, but I think losing Brogdon is huge. It's huge. First of all, they were able to secure Brook Lopez. I think he signed something like a 4-year, $52 million deal. Arguably, this was Brook Lopez's best season of his career. He successfully made a transition from being a more of a traditional low block center to becoming more of a stretch five. You know, this year, well, this past year, um, becoming known for hitting threes, especially deep threes. I think he shot like 35, 36% from three-point range, which is pretty good for a 7-footer. And not only do the Milwaukee Bucks sign Brook Lopez, but they also sign his brother and Robin Lopez, who was formerly with the Chicago Bulls, I believe. Robin is the one that looks like Captain Caveman. So you get two Lopez's essentially almost for the price of one. I think ultimately what may happen with Milwaukee, I think they might ultimately waive Pau Gasol. I think Pau Gasol is pretty much done anyway, you know. It gets to the point where you can't play more than 20 games at a time without some type of injury, man. I think your body's pretty much starting to tell you, you know, that you're pretty much done. Um, Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton was an all-star this year. Some people question whether he should have been an all-star. Um, he played well in the all-star game in long stretches. Uh, and for the first couple of rounds of the playoffs, Chris Middleton was super. Against the Toronto Raptors, however, in certain games, Chris Middleton looked terrible, especially when it came to his ball handling and decision making out there. Um, in certain situations, we put pressure on him. He was playing above himself oftentimes, trying to prove he was an all-star, and ultimately he failed in many situations. But he is an important part of this team. My issue is, and I had to be careful how I say this, is what it took for the team to resign him, which was I think it was a 5-year, $178 million deal. Um, Look, I'm not trying to say anybody is overpaid or anything like that, but with that contract, if I'm not mistaken, that makes him the highest paid player on the team, including Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that includes on a per year basis. Because I think this past year Giannis made like $24 million or something like that. So Chris Middleton makes more money than him. I just have my issues with that one. You know, I you know, I just found out talking to my boy yesterday, and Middleton only made I think he only averaged 18 points per game last year. You know, and I know that's not everything, But I mean, look, I'm like this. Middleton better take a huge step up next year as a basketball player for the Milwaukee Bucks to offset the loss of Malcolm Brogdon. You know what I'm saying? They're paying you over $30 million a year now. They're paying you over 30 million. I think that's off the top of my head, 35 to $36 million a season on average. That's a pretty big fucking contract. Like I said, I'm not trying to say anybody's overpaid, but to me, when you're making that amount of money, you gotta be putting up 20 something points a game. You gotta be putting up, you know, all star numbers, like borderline superstar numbers. Like you gotta be averaging 25 a game minimum. And what kind of pisses me off when a lot of these dudes sign these big contracts that aren't worthy of them. I notice that oftentimes they tend to underperform, especially that year after the contract. I don't know whether they just psychologically just feel relaxed or whatever, or maybe sometimes they feel pressured to perform at a certain level. But a lot of these dudes just ultimately just stink up the joint after they sign these big contracts. But Malcolm Brogdon, man, that was a big loss for the Milwaukee Bucks, a big loss. And what they got in return, to me, I don't think was worth it. I mean, you never know how these picks are going to pan out. It might be, a good thing, but what was it? One first round pick and two future second round picks for Brogdon? I mean, Brogdon was a pure shooter, man, in a league where shooting is valued greatly. He was a very efficient player, a very high IQ basketball player, good person, from what I can understand, philanthropic. Uh, you can see the steady improvement. His first year, he shot 46% from the floor. His second year, he shot 48%. This past year, he shot over 50% from the floor. Uh, he's a career 40% three-point shooter, a career 89.5% foul shooter. Last year, he led the NBA in free throw percentage. He had a 50-40-90 season. That was just his third year. And his scoring average was improving every year. So you could just look and you kind of expect that with the Pacers, he might have a breakout year, man. It might be one of those things when you see him and you see Victor Oladipo playing together, and I think they can mesh well together because, you know, Brogdon isn't Westbrook. So, yeah, man, I just think the Bucks really lost something with losing Brogdon, man. They really did, because ultimately you got to worry about securing Giannis, and if the Bucks are not showing that they're building a team that, if anything, is improving around Giannis rather than regressing, then that can influence his decision in the near future about what he's going to do when his contract is up. You see what I'm saying? Like if you're because ultimately I think the Bucks took a step backwards in a conference where you need to be constantly rebuilding and manning up. You know what I'm saying? Every championship team, no matter what it is, you have to make some changes. You got to see what the other teams are doing and make adjustments. And in my opinion, the Brooklyn Nets took a big step up. I don't think they're going to win a championship this year, but they took a big step up. What you got to worry about is them in 2021, 2022. You know, and who knows how these other teams are going to, what's going to happen in the near future with these other teams. With the Celtics in a couple of years. What pieces can they add? Toronto, will Kawhi stay? If he does stay, what pieces can they add? Shit, if you're the Bucks, you kind of hope that Giannis jettisons to LA, because now you got to worry about the Eastern Conference, because remember, I'm telling you, this ain't the same conference when LeBron James was dominating. And it's not a knock on LeBron, but even the most hardened LeBron fanatic got to admit, the Eastern Conference has really stepped up in competition the last couple of years, and it's getting stronger. So, if you're the Bucks, man, you really gotta worry about your long-term investment, which is Giannis Antetokounmpo, and hopefully the Bucks can make some moves. You know, make some moves and do some things to further improve this team. And I forgot to mention that they lost Nikola Mirotic. He bailed. You know, the Utah Jazz, I think, gave him a 3-year, $45 million contract. He chose to play in EuroLeague, which is considerably less money. Maybe he don't like Americans, or maybe he just finds the pace of the NBA. Maybe he finds the competition in the NBA too much for him, or whatever. I don't know, but he bailed, so you lost Mirotic, you lost Brogdon, so you've lost two of your best shooters, two of your big guns. So we shall see. I know one thing: Middleton better fucking produce, man. You making $35 million plus a year. Look, you got to fucking produce, man. You got to put up some fucking numbers, more consistency, step up. You were an all-star this year. Some people consider you a borderline all-star. Next year, you better be a no doubt abouter. You know what I'm saying? You gotta look like fucking, prime Dale Ellis out this bitch next year. You know what I'm saying? No excuses. You gotta look like fucking Pager in the zone out this bitch. You averaging fucking 15.9 on 33% shooting, man. You screwy squirrel looking motherfucker.